Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kiera Dent, and I have this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kiera, and you guys, I am so excited to be bringing on an incredible guest. He and I actually met at a Tony Robbins event, and he just said, you know, Kiera, I think I have a really fun topic for your audience. So I am super excited to bring on Ronny Leber. Ronny is actually from Austria, guys. Like, no joke. That's one of my favorite things about Tony Robbins is I get to meet all these people from all across the world. But he is a well-renowned keynote speaker, stadium host, and legacy coach who's entertained 5 million people live and worldwide at some major sporting events, corporate events, and seminars. So he literally, guys, has been an incredible person. I mean, we're talking 5 million people he has entertained. So he has been on for more than 1,500 hours on live television as a host and an anchorman. So I'm just excited to hear his story. He's going to share some tips on what he's done in his career to really help you guys in dentistry in a very unconventional way. So welcome to the show, Ronny. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm wonderful. And also, if you're just listening to this right now, you're thinking like, well, what does that have to do with dentistry? Then stay tuned because we got some aces up the sleeves today.
That's right. So Ronny, I shared a little bit about you. That's your bio, but tell me, how did you even get into television? Like to be an anchorman, to be entertaining 5 million people live, like kind of just walk us through, how did you even get to that part of your life?
Well, actually, it didn't start with television. It actually started with hosting a lot of events, and like it all started in sports. So basically, I studied sports. I was also always enthusiastic about sports, and also studied business and marketing. And when I got done with university, I was thinking like, man, what do you want to do now in your life? Like until then, everything was kind of like playtime, but now it's real.
Right.
Like because of course, when you study dentistry, then it's pretty clear, okay, I'm going to become a dentist or something along the way. But in my field, it was not really that clear. And well, then I thought maybe I want to do something that I'm really passionate about because I want to enjoy, like I really want to enjoy what I do. And then I thought, well, that's a great concept. But what is it? And so I actually kept asking myself for weeks and months over and over the same questions again until it always came down to the thing that already when I was a little kid, I was always excited about events that bring the whole world together. Like a soccer World Cup. Growing up in Europe, it was like the whole world was circling around that, or Olympic Games, or also when you're not into sports and when you love music, when you go to a concert, like you're totally there. Yeah. And you're totally consumed by the energy, and you're not thinking about, oh, I need to go to the hairdresser tomorrow, or to the dentist, or I have, or maybe that I need to send a text message or something. No, you're totally in the moment. And I thought, I want to work in that space. I didn't know exactly what and how. I mean, how do you know how if you don't know what? But right. I knew that like this is the passion. This is the fight. This is the why. And then actually also incidentally at that time, one of our local professional soccer teams, they were looking for a stadium host for their youth teams. And since some of those coaches knew me from university, they were asking me. And I was like, all right, okay. So just like for fun. And I didn't really think that was going to go anywhere career-wise. It was not on my mind. I just thought, okay, that's going to be fun. It's cool. And well, and then, I mean, almost 15 years later, it just developed, like from the national soccer team of Austria as a stadium announcer, a ring announcer at boxing events, Vienna City Marathon, professional ice hockey, ATP tennis tournament, and so on and so on. And then it got into corporate events and keynote speaking, and then COVID came. And suddenly all the events were, well, let's say limited to say the least,
Mm-hmm.
or not happening for some time. Sports events came back a bit earlier, but yeah, it was not the same. And then I thought, well, I got to change something. As you know, as we know, also, there's always a way. It's just about finding a different approach.
Sure.
And that's when I actually started to get on television. And actually, COVID was such a blessing because I was more than 1,500 hours live on TV in less than 1.5 years.
Wow.
And I mean, this is just insane, the amount of practice also that you get. Paid practice. I mean, what gets better than that?
I agree. Ronnie, I actually want to dive into something that you said that I really loved. And you said you were asking yourself for months and weeks, and it didn't come to you right away. So once you figured out, like, and I think that that's an important point to note of like who we want to become and our why. Is it instantaneous? And I think as human beings, we want it to be instantaneous. But I really love that you put forth effort. So I'm just curious if you could kind of drill down a little bit more of like, what did you do to discover what you really wanted? That's part A. And then part B of it is once you discovered it, how did you even start to find the opportunities? Because I really feel like this is the topic that's often like we hear that people were sitting on one side of the chasm and somehow magically got to the other side. They figured it out, but we don't usually talk about that interim. So for you, like what types of things did you do to figure out what you really did enjoy to be able to find you into this passionate place?
Beautiful question. Thank you so much. And first of all, it was like some months, or basically about half a year before I got done with university, that I knew, all right, it's like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I really started digging. And as I said before, I thought, well, I mean, how about doing something that I'm passionate about? Because I thought if you're passionate about something, you're gonna be good at it, or you're gonna become good at it because you're gonna enjoy doing it. You're gonna love doing it. And also, like if, for example, if you're right now at a point in your career or in your life that there is not a lot of passion in it, then maybe you need to reignite to a part of the passion that you actually used to have, or you need to find a part of your work that you're passionate about, or you got to change it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me back then, it was, I started to ask myself questions. I started to ask myself, what do I love to do in my free time? What do I spend money on? What is it that actually juices me up emotionally? What do I talk about with my friends? What is it that already as a little kid that excited me, that really juiced me? And in the beginning, I didn't get anywhere. Like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't, and one more thing, actually, when I was asking myself those questions, I did not limit myself at first with, well, I mean, how are you going to make money with that?
Mm.
Because I thought, if you're going to be good at something, if you're going to be great at something, if you're going to be the best at something, or maybe even the best in the world, you're going to figure out a way to monetize it.
Yeah.
So that was and so I thought, okay, let's take all the money topic from the table for now. Let's just figure out what am I passionate about. And so after, like, I would say like every week or a few times a month, several times a month, I was asking myself those questions over and over again, like when I was driving in the car, or when I was like doing something, walking around. And it always came back then to the same thing that I always, as a little kid, as I told you before, I was already like really excited about those events. And basically, I just thought about sports in the beginning. But in general, also the Tony Robbins environment is the same thing. Like, I mean, where we met, I just love being around people. I just love creating magic moments for people.
Mm-hmm.
And also being in this environment, like soaking it up myself, but also creating more out of it. And by the way, we can also talk about magic moments a little later, how you
Yeah.
can actually create magic moments for your clients, because that's
Mm.
also maybe something, especially dentists are not oftentimes something what you think about initially when you think about a magic moment
Yeah.
for many people. Yeah. So
That's quite the mind shift. I hope everybody just heard like create magic moments in dentistry in the profession that's hated the most, but I love it. And we're totally going to dive into that. Keep going though. I'm radically enthralled with this and just loving it because I think so many people don't talk about this. So many people don't know how to find it. So many people have lost their passion. And so I'm just excited. So keep going.
yeah, and then it was okay. I mean, in the beginning, as I said, I didn't know what I would do in that field. Like it was just like, okay, I love the concept, I love the environment, but what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
and and then, as I said, then the thing happened with the youth team like as a stadium announcer, and I just thought, okay, great. I mean, it's fun, like once a month on a Saturday afternoon, sitting out there hosting 2 games. I remember I got $70 per game at the time, and I thought, man, I really gambled high. I really like I didn't see it as a job. I just thought like, hey, the best thing was that I got the invitation for the Christmas party and
Mm-hmm.
and like free tickets for the big guys. So that was actually the coolest thing about it. 1 year later, 25th of June 2009, that was the day that Michael Jackson died.
Mm-hmm.
So some of you might know where you were at the time, or maybe many of you, depending on your age as well. And I certainly remember I was at a party from a sports university, and when I left there at 5:15 in the morning, it was on a boat. I left the boat, and then another colleague of mine left, and she was actually working for the professional ice hockey team. And since I was like, I had this whole thing, the whole concept circling in my mind, and it was like, I mean, typically 5:15 in the morning, you cannot script that. I was like, hey, by any chance, are you looking for a new stadium announcer? And she was like, I have no idea. I'll ask. And the next day she calls me, you know what? We're looking for someone. Like, oh, cool. And then like 3 talks later with the manager, you get your chance. And funny enough, the very first game that I saw live of that ice hockey team, I was hosting it and doing the music. Like it was totally, and suddenly going from 150 people watching the youth soccer team to several thousand people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it was the first time when I thought, hey, this could be a career. I want to do more of that. And I immediately started the whole money from the first season I put into a speaker's education, like basically one to one. I There was zero left, but I thought, hey, you know what? Whatever comes out of that, I'm gonna have that, and this is, I want to do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I knew what I want to do. That's when I knew the what, and then it was just about figuring out the how, and it was just like following a dream. It was just igniting that passion and just calling in the beginning. It was like really cold calling in a way, like, hey, I'm Ronnie, and I would love to speak for you. For example, one of those things was the American Football World Championship. Yes, it exists. It's not the Super
Amazing.
Bowl. It's where countries play against each other. And guess who won? It was the US, of course. But anyway, and I was hosting that because 1 year before that, I was calling them and saying, hey, how would that work? Like I was one of the hosts, and it was really cool. I was enjoying that.
That's
And so,
amazing.
yeah. And so the story went on.
That's really fun, Ronnie. And I hope it's kind of fun because sometimes when I podcast without realizing it, certain people will come to my mind and I start asking questions with them in mind. So I just love that for whoever's listening, that I love that you just took a chance, Ronnie. So, like, you asked yourself these questions, you gave yourself that space, which I think a lot of dentists, a lot of offices right now are kind of, I called it the COVID crank. And then it's been the, like, what was it, when everybody was leaving. And so we had all the turnover in 2021. It was the great resignation. And then this year it's just kind of been like, well, it's either you're coming on the upswing or you're still in the down. And I think people are just kind of in this, like, I would say sludge is probably a good way to describe what I think people are experiencing now. So that's why I really wanted to dive into this to hear, one, what were the questions and how did you specifically find out the things that light your passion? Because I know as a business owner, I was so freaking passionate when I started the company. And then, gosh, like there are some days where I just don't want to keep working. But I realize it's because I'm doing all the things that I actually don't enjoy doing, the things that I didn't do when I started it. I'm putting myself, like, I'm a very creative person. And yet I've got so much management and structure, and my days are stacked. And I'm like, I need space. Like I feel like I'm about to explode over here. But realizing that that's where my passion comes. My passion comes from creativity. My passion came from wanting to build and to help serve all these dentists, but really it's to be creative in your practices and help you have an easier life. Like that's what lights my fire. It is not building protocols. It is not having meetings with my team. That does not inspire me whatsoever. And so really learning what you did. And then I love the second piece of it, of you took a risk. You asked people, you said things, you leveraged your network around you, because I feel so often people want to live a life, but they're one question or one conversation away from a very different life that they just aren't willing to take. So thank you for diving into that.
And you know what, Kiera, when you talked about leveraging the network around you, like when you're working professionally in an area, you probably already have a network. But like when I started out, I didn't know anybody and nobody knew me.
Right.
Like it was totally like when you're starting out, oftentimes you're starting out with no network at all, or when you're moving to a different place. And it's okay. It's fine. You can build a network. It's just about consistency, like really going to events, knowing where is your target audience, where are the people where are the people congregating that you want to get. Like, I mean, okay, as a dentist you could say, well, I mean, whoever has a toothache, but maybe you want to actually specialize, maybe you want to have a certain group, or you want to attract maybe a certain income level, or whatever it is that you want to specialize in, that you feel that's something that's awesome. Like it's also in every business, it's about building a brand. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not a brand, you're interchangeable.
Yep.
But if you're a brand, then people want to come to you because you offer something unique.
Mm-hmm. So Ronny, I actually we're gonna riff on all these topics that were not on our list. How do you feel from all the experience that you've had? I mean, like you said, one, I love that you made it okay for people not to know anybody, to be the new person, to be the new dentist on the block, to be the new team member in the practice. And even if you've been there for a long time, you still might be new in certain different surroundings, certain different groups of people. So I think we all have an opportunity to be new and to expand our network. But Ronny, you talked about building that brand. How do you, from like, I feel you've built a brand, you had to create yourself. You're also on TV, which I feel you got to be pretty good. Otherwise you don't get invited back, which I would think some of that might be around being a brand and a person. But what are some of the tips that you found around building that brand that you think would be worth sharing? Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kiera, and you guys, how was your 2022? I want you to look back and tell me, was it the year of years, or was it a really hard year? Did you crush it, or did it crush you? This is the time, guys, for end of year, Dental A Team Platinum is welcoming you, where we will physically fly to your practice. We will come and we will elevate your dreams and make them into a reality. And guys, space is limited and prices are going up. This is not a sales pitch. This is not something where I'm trying to scare you into it. I'm just facing the reality of inflation is here, flights are expensive, and I want to see as many people as we possibly can and serve as many as we can. So if you want to be part of our elite group of people, there are limited spaces because our consultants can only see as many. We are taking on 10 new platinum offices by the end of the year, and that's it. That's all we have space for. So if you want to be one of the elite 10, come join us. Be a part of our top-notch elite doctor community. Be a part of our office manager and hygiene and front office communities. Get your operations manual done and live the life that you've only been dreaming of today. Email me hello@thedentalteam.com and make 2023 truly a year that's unforgettable. We are a complete tax write-off. And like I said, we are only taking 10 offices. So don't get left behind. Be one of those 10. And I cannot wait to give you the biggest, warmest welcome to completely and utterly changing your life for good. Welcome to the Dental A Team. I can't wait for you to join us. hello@thedentalteam.com. Cheers to 2023 and making you your best self yet.
Well, first of all, Kiera, when you were talking about like being new, and even if you've been around for some time, I mean, let's say if you've been around for some time, let's say maybe you're in your 50s now, you're probably not a digital native.
Yeah.
And you might be new to the whole, I mean, it's not that new, but to the whole online virtual space, internet, or for example, doing videos online, like creating a community, maybe having a YouTube channel, having a podcast like you have. And it's like, usually, well, my business has always been like that.
Yeah.
And why should I do this? I don't need that. Like, I have clients coming in. I get that point. At the same time, today's opportunities give you so much, that actually gives you so much opportunity. how you can create your brand, how you can actually really dive deep into your target audience, into your market. And so first of all, it's really about what is your outcome? That's number one. What's your outcome? Number two is, who is your audience? Who is the audience that you want to attract? Like really, who is it that you want to work with? Who are those people? And from like, this is the basic, this is the fundamentals. If you don't know those two things, what your outcome is and who are the people you want to attract, you got some work to do. And then it's really about, okay, figuring out what can I do in order to attract those people? What can I do to get them in? One of the things that we have been talking about before, it's a concept that's called newsjacking. Newsjacking? What is that? Newsjacking basically means taking something that is on the news, something that is, or something that many people will experience at the same time, and creating a spin around it. Sports events are always something. For example, when the Super Bowl is coming up, and when you maybe create a spin that has something to do with your business, then it's a great thing that you can, like, people will have an emotional connection to that. Or maybe political is always a bit like walking or living on the edge in a way. Or I mean, when there are elections or midterm elections, I wouldn't get too political unless you're really a very political dentist and you only want to serve one party. But I mean, I just think about Michael Jordan back then when he was asked to basically promote a Democratic candidate. He said, well, Republicans buy shoes too. And so you got to know really what you put yourself into.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you are creating something, when you're creating, for example, on social media, some posts, or when you when you know your audience, and then you can create such funny things like memes or videos, or you can educate them. That's amazing. Or when you know, for example, you know what, my audience is like, let's say, affluent people, and you are in an area where you have many of those. And for example, one of the things that you could do is that you say, you know what, in my area or in close to me, many of affluent people live in this postcode. And then you can just basically send out something to this postcode. And then you could offer something. Like, what's your value ladder? Do you have a value ladder? What is a value ladder? Value ladder is like, if you offer something maybe for free. And then you have, well, for example, hey, come in. I'm gonna give you a free
free whitening.
maybe like
I think free whitening is oftentimes a thing I see often.
Yeah, for example, free whitening. Yeah. And then the person comes in and then it's like, well, but maybe you also would like to have this, so you would like to do this. So maybe like, know what are the logical next steps, and you're gonna get, like, I mean, free whitening. Who wouldn't take that? But if you just spread it around and you don't know your audience, you're gonna attract whoever, and people are gonna come for free whitening, and all right, thank you, see ya.
Right.
But if you really know who is that person that you want to serve, and also your whole dental office, is that the way you call it?
Yeah, dental office, dental practice. Yeah.
Yeah, also your whole dental practice is basically is something that is attractive to your customer. For example, if it's kids, if you want to attract kids or parents with kids, then it should have toys in it. It should have something in it what's funny for kids, or you should maybe have like when the drill comes, like, oh, now comes the bee, or whatever. Like you just have some funny names or something that the kids enjoy coming to you, for example, or
for sure,
and so on. Like, basically, it's really something. How can you attract it? And talking about TV, because you were actually talking about that before. I was working, as I told you, for more than 1,500 hours on TV.
Yeah.
And I'm sure also in your area there is a local TV station. And I mean, on the one hand, as a dentist, I get it. You have, I mean, it's all like, you need to create something that's newsworthy. Because I mean, yeah, we got teeth. Yeah, we need to go to the dentist. What's new? Yeah. But like, how can you create some content around it, or something that like, that is amazing, something that is maybe that you haven't thought about, or that nobody talks about very often. But now, like, oh, there comes a new method of brushing your teeth, or is this whatever kind of groundbreaking new things that are happening. And you need to also pitch this to the stations. You need to pitch it to the journalists. May it be for newspapers, may it be for TV stations. Maybe you actually have a PR agent. If this is something you really want to take serious, like expanding your brand, building your brand, then I would seriously also consider getting a PR agent who has contacts, who maybe knows those people, and get you there in contact. And then when you actually get an opportunity to come on TV, it's really about you being natural. It's about you also telling some stories, telling some interesting things where people can relate to. And when they see you, they're going to be like, oh, that's the podcast woman, or that's the woman that I saw on TV, or that's, yeah, I want to go to her. I want to go to her dental A team, or to her dental practice, whatever your name is of that. Like, that's something that I would enjoy, because people buy from people that they love or that they like.
Right. Yeah, I love it so much. I feel like there were so many pieces in there, guys, of Ronny comes from a different industry. And that's why I wanted him on the podcast, because I feel like sometimes in dentistry, we get stuck in our ruts of doing the same thing rather than thinking outside the box. So as you were saying that, Ronny, I was thinking, guys, like, great ways that you can attract, just some easy tangibles for you are, like he was saying, of newsjacking. TikTok's pretty hot right now, guys, and there's a lot of trends, and you can make some fun trends on TikTok, and that is a form of newsjacking, because you're hopping on to already made trends and themes and memes, and your practice is following suit. So it's a real easy way if you want to try and get into it in a tangible way. And then I was thinking, when you were talking about what's your offer, and I thought for dentists, as you were saying it, of how to like bring it full circle of what Ronny just said, and then giving you guys some tangibles is, okay, offer the free whitening or whatever your irresistible offer is. But then where I feel like you build your brand and your differentiator is on your experience. What is that experience in the practice for your patients? Because people hate going to the dentist. But if you don't know your target audience, like Ronny was saying, like amazing experience for a child at your practice is going to be radically different than if you are trying to attract elderly patients. Elderly patients are going to want different type of marketing, different type of experience, rather than young children. And so with Ronny saying that, I really hope you guys take time to assess, one, who is our ideal patient. And so many dentists, when I do this exercise with them, they say, Kiera, every patient is my ideal patient. I'm like, that's not true. Patients who pay you and who pay you well are your ideal patient. Like, that's who you want to have in your practice. So really figuring
out. And how can you get more value actually out of the patient, by the way? Like, how can you actually create more value? Because as the patient is already there, how can you create, not just how can you get more money, how can you create more value? Also more value for them equals more value for you.
Amen. I think that that's something that I don't feel is often thought about. And it's really serving these patients, it's giving them an amazing experience, and then also thinking outside the box. So when Ronny was talking about going to the newspaper, to journalists, to TV, I don't know how many of you probably freaked out and you're like, there's no way. But could you imagine if you were on local and in the community and giving a great information? Like, you guys, there's sleep apnea. That is a huge topic that I think impacts more patients than we realize, that people don't realize that if you snore, you might actually be having issues with sleep apnea, and that's an easy fix that can actually save their lives. That is a really fantastic educational piece for your community that would set you ahead as an authority within your community. You're giving massive value to your community, and I actually think a lot of people would probably publish articles like that.
And think about that, Kiera. Like, if somebody has sleep apnea, what are they going to do? On the one hand, they might ask the doctor, but first, oftentimes, what do you do nowadays? They ask Google.
Yep.
Like, they're going to look. So because as you were mentioning, TikTok, for example, TikTok is a platform, like TV is a platform. Also the internet is a platform. Also, of course, newspapers is a platform, magazines and so on. And YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and so on. Like, all those are different platforms. The question is, how, like, once you know who is your target audience, I cannot emphasize that enough. Also, where are they congregating? On what platform? What are they looking at? Are those the people who are looking or searching on YouTube? Are those the people who are searching on Google? Are those the people, like, what are you doing? And if you, for example, have a great video about that on YouTube, and maybe have some great, like once a week, put out a video on a certain topic. How cool is that? Because then the people are already going to know you. They're like, oh yeah, that's the internet doctor. That's the internet dentist.
Amen. I think you honed in on something that I hope people are really taking home with them, and that is knowing your target audience will save you thousands of hours of time, in my opinion. Because instead of trying to be on every platform doing everything, you are really isolated into where your target audience is hanging out. And I can't say that enough. Like, if you want to save time and reach more people, figure out your target audience, like Ronnie's saying, and then you can really truly add value in those areas. So, Ronnie, as we wrap up, I feel we owe it to our listeners to tie
But you
back.
know what?
Go ahead.
One more thing before we wrap up, because we were talking about magic
I
moments
was just
before.
going to say that. I was going to say we have to talk magic moments, Ronnie, because we can't leave them hanging. We teed it up. So let's talk magic moments and how to create those magic moments in dentistry.
Beautiful. Because think about it. What is a magic moment to you, Kiera? Or how would you define a magic moment?
Oh gosh, I think a magic moment are sometimes big, sometimes small, but they're moments in my life that I just felt alive, that feel very special. It's those really soul-filling moments in my life that I like to collect and remember and lean back on, that just make me feel more excited and happy in life.
Beautiful. I also feel that at the end of our lives, we're not going to remember everything, but we're going to remember some certain magic moments, like moments that I like to think of, that you can tell your grandkids about someday, or maybe that when you go to bed at night, that make you grin, or that when you wake up in the morning, you have a smile on your face. And those emotional moments, on the one hand, I mean, in my world of events and sports events, oftentimes I get to experience those moments, and it's beautiful. So sometimes we get to experience them, but not only at events, of course, also around people, people that we love, that we care about, but also those moments can be created purposefully. And when you're thinking, well, how do I create a magic moment? Well, think about it that way. Anybody out there who is married? What happens usually before you get married?
You date, you get engaged, you fall in love.
What happens in order to get engaged?
You got to have a relationship. You've got to be in love. You've got to go choose the ring if you're a girl like me. You know, I have to really want to be with that person. A lot of awesome experiences that make me want to be with that person.
Hmm. And of course, you need to ask. You need to
Oh,
propose.
valid.
You need to propose to the person in order to get, and oftentimes it's the man, but of course it can also be the woman. And so when you are actually thinking about, well, when you're thinking about proposing, you're going to ask yourself many questions. I mean, first of all, of course, who am I proposing to? But I'm guessing at that point you already know that. So you're going to ask yourself, well, you already know who your target audience is. You know it crystal clear. You know that person. And then you're going to think, well, what does she like, or what does he like? And what is it that maybe, like, should it be in public? Should it be in private? Is it something that I want to do like on a beach? Like, what's the scenery going to be, with music, without music? Is it going to be maybe at the sunset? Or, like, you're going to think about all different kinds of things. Like, how is it going to be maybe on vacation or in New Year's or whatever? Yeah, like, all those things are going through your mind. And you're creating the perfect magic moment for the other person. Because obviously, you want to remember it, you want them to remember it, and you want them to say yes.
Absolutely.
So those are usually some of the outcomes. And the same thought process goes through how you can create magic moments for your clients, or also for your employees sometimes. Like, it's really about the people around you, or also in private life maybe. But think about it. When you know who your audience is, who your ideal customer is, what is it that juices them up? What is maybe something, how you can make their day, how you can create something, or maybe an experience, or something that they did not expect, that they didn't think that was going to happen. but just something that is like, well, I mean, totally different thing, a totally different field. But for example, I remember I was 16 years old and I was somewhere between Iowa and Maine. We were driving in a car, so it took many days actually. And there was a Mexican restaurant somewhere. And I remember there were like 7 tables that were people were sitting in a Mexican restaurant. And suddenly, one of those tables, there was a birthday. And out came the guy like with a big Mexican sombrero, like this big hat. He put it on the birthday person, put down a cake in front of that person, and then he started singing and had like some instruments like "It is your birthday, it is your birthday, happy birthday to our guest," something like that. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and it was really funny. And you know what's even funnier? Within like half an hour, all of the other tables had their birthday too. So the whole thing, like every 5 minutes basically, and we were already thinking, okay, who of us has a birthday today? But it was all, I still remember that, and that was that was decades ago.
Hmm.
But if you can create something that is memorable, something that is likable, and that people do not expect, but is really also comes from your heart and is also authentic, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think in to tie that into dentistry, I think about for me, I know as when I worked in the practices, I felt like my most like shining moments and the moments that just made me love what I was doing was when a patient would hug me or they would say, like, I never thought I would smile again. You completely changed my life. Those are the moments that people will tell their grandkids about, and you can create that. The reason I love dentistry, Ronnie, is because I feel like our smiles are the greatest confidence that we can give any person. And so to be able to be in a profession where we truly have the opportunity to make those magic moments that really can change people's lives. And they do. But, like, what can you do to more consistently have patients feel like their dental experience, their dental office literally was life changing for them would be, I think, a good zone for you guys to question and to explore.
And Kiera, that's a perfect example because think about it. Think about it when you're going through a process, maybe with Invisaligns or whatever, like through a process from totally transforming somebody's smile. And it's the whole appearance because the smile is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And think about the graduation, like the moment that it's done,
Yep.
the moment that that person now has the most amazing smile. How can you make this moment last? How can you create such a deep emotional experience? Because think about it, oftentimes those people have been wanting a great smile for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They were just craving for it. And maybe they didn't have the time, they didn't have the money, they didn't have the know how, whatever it was. But somehow they overcame all those limitations to come to that point, to come to that day, to come to that moment when it's all real. And how can you create that moment, that graduation, that like, now I'm off of Invisaligns. Now I'm like, that's it. How can you create this beautiful? Maybe there's going to be some music. Maybe it's going to be like a part of your team. It's going to be congratulating. Or maybe you're going to have like some smile celebration or something with a picture maybe taken.
Mm-hmm.
How that person would feel and think about it, like taking a picture, putting it in a frame, having a smile and giving that frame with the picture to a person as well. I mean, they're going to keep that. They're going to cherish that moment. And they will come back.
Mm-hmm. And they'll be raving fans of you. I think I can speak from personal experience. I was in a pretty tragic accident and I had my face smashed into a wall. And I remember going through a lot of processes. That's why I think I've got so much love and empathy for dentistry because it literally changed my life. And yet I think back, I am a huge raving fan of that practice. They literally changed my life. I've referred tons of people to them. Me and that doctor actually full circle, we are kind of working on a side business together like many decades later. But she literally changed my life. And I think back and I remember them taking photos of me, not for me. And they used me for a smile gallery, which is awesome. But to hear that, like, how cool would it be if they would have given me those when I had the absolute confidence of having my smile back when I didn't think I would ever be able to smile again? That is a moment that is 100% life changing for me. But I love how you said, instead of it just being for the practice, having it be for the patient as well, and how I would have loved those photos to be able to look back and to see my confidence, like in my mind's eye. I can remember going and taking the photos for them, and they're using it for a smile gallery to showcase it to other patients. But I mean, it would have been pretty special for me as a patient to have that, because that moment literally was one that changed my life.
Beautiful. And I mean, really, as a dentist, you have that capacity, that ability to change somebody's life.
You do. Ronny, that was absolutely beautiful. And I just appreciate your time today. I appreciate you talking us through from the beginning of how you found your passion and how the questions you asked, and finding to be alone and building a network, to then talking about different ways to be on television, to share your message, to have a target audience, to newsjacking ideas, to finally wrapping it up with how to create beautiful magic moments for your patients. I just think it was a beautiful episode, and I'm so honored that you were able to join us today. Ronny, I know you do a lot of outreach. You do work with a lot of people. If people want to know more about you, if they want to connect with you, have more Ronny in their life, how can they get in touch with you and experience more Ronny?
First of all, thank you so much, Kiera. Also, I totally enjoyed being here with you, and also for everybody listening. I hope that you got some nuggets for you out of that. And if you want to have more, just connect with me on ronnyleber.com. I'm also happy to work with you one-on-one. And at the same time, you can also, of course, look me up on social networks, on maybe LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. Just /Ronny Leber. That's RONNYLEBER. And I'm happy to meet you there and talk with you.
I love it. And can you guys tell he knows where his target audience hangs out? LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Guys, he's on the networks where you guys will be hanging out. So Ronny, thank you so much for it. And for all of you listening, thank you for listening. And I'll catch you next time on the Dental A-Team podcast.
And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A-Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.